Welcome to our Monday Night Wellness webinar, and we're really, I don't want to say, yeah, we feel good about being able to provide you with this information on breathing freely, the role of nutrition in asthma. And if you've heard some of our pre-call chat here, you realize, I think, as parents, as aunts and uncles, as grandparents, if we are in the life of a child and in the life of a child with asthma, whatever we can do to give them some relief or help them on the road to wellness is important for us to do. So we have Master Coordinator Barb Lagoni, Steve Cheney, I'm Joe Coogan, and our special guest Amber Robinson to be with us tonight. Barb Lagoni has a degree in foods and nutrition from Cornell University, worked at Kraft Kitchens, and is a recipe wizard. And Dr. Cheney has his PhD, and he is a retired professor from, I always get this wrong,
University of North Carolina.
North Carolina. And Dr. Cheney is really quite renowned. He has published scientific articles in scientific journals, has done cancer research, and was selected as one of the top honors given to professors at the University of North Carolina.
Distinguished Professor Award.
Yes. Yes.
By the alumni. We're just lucky, really fortunate to have him. So, I think we'll begin. Let me. So our topic tonight is a really important one, and so let me give you a little background on it. There is a book written a few years ago by Kenneth Bach called "Healing the New Childhood Epidemics: Autism, Asthma, ADHD, and Allergies." And I wanted to mention it because in the book they are they track and tell you, just how the incidence continues to climb for all of these issues, and they propose some reasons for it. And first was that they said that toxins are proliferating, that children today especially are exposed to dangerous amounts of toxins in the air. You may have heard some of the conversation that's going on at the federal level about coal burning factories because mercury is released, and lead, which damages IQ. Water, of course, you remember the articles about how polluted our water is with not only hydrocarbons and pathogens, which are disease-carrying materials, but medications. And people are flushing medications down the toilet, and they're ending up in the water table and then into the drinking water supply. And then food itself. Lots of criticism is being leveled at the food industry because of the number of additives that are used increasingly, but also even the way the animals are raised, the poultry, the beef, lots of chemicals, lots of hormones, lots of antibiotics. So toxins that our body are exposed to has really increased dramatically, but at the same time nutrition has deteriorated. The average intake of essential nutrients steadily declining since 1980. And you know what they've been replaced by? Delicious foods, but unhealthy foods. The foods coming out of boxes and packaging, crunchy, salty, chippy, snacky stuff that's been replacing live, real food that grows out of the earth. And because of all of those things combined, the body has some amazing systems that are in place to detoxify the body and the blood and the cells. But the detoxification ability now is also severely damaged because of exposure to all of these toxic things. So to give you a little idea about asthma, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, asthma is increasing every year, and Amber said that this number that I just got from the Center for Disease Control very recently has now more recently even been updated to 1 in 11 people in the United States, 25 million. It's an inflammatory condition, a weakened immune system, but it adds this this element of inflammation of the bronchial tubes, which then shuts off the airways, and people are struggle for their breath. Causes 4,200 deaths a year, and it costs the country in medical costs, in lost time at work and school, and in early deaths of $56 billion. And so it's something we need to address and see what we can do to help people who have this and help prevent it for those who may not or who may be at risk for it. And so our guest tonight is Amber Robinson from Florida, and that's her adorable little girl, Lena Grace. And so Amber, thanks for joining us tonight. And if you would just walk us through Lena Grace's history and what happened to her starting, it looks like, when she was just an infant.
It was. She was never sick until she was about 10 months old, and then she got an ear infection, turned into a double ear infection, turned into pneumonia, all within like a week period. It went that fast. She didn't respond to any medications. In that time frame, we discovered she was allergic to 2 or 3 different medicines. We were going back and forth with shots. And then basically from there, my daughter just seemed sick all the time. She constantly had a cough, or she constantly had a runny nose. And at that young of an age, they really don't like to diagnose anything like allergies or even asthma that early. So we basically were told, your daughter just needs to build up her immune system. And I was like, she stays at home with her mom. She's not around anybody that's sick. But she was always sick. And it was really bad at night. She was coughing so bad she would throw up. I said earlier before the call started, I put her in the bed with me. I finally started co-sleeping with her at only 12 months old because I was scared she wasn't going to breathe in the middle of the night, or that she was going to throw up and I wouldn't hear her, or she was going to gag. So we went back and forth constantly. We saw a allergy specialist before she was 2 years old. We saw an asthma specialist before she was 2 years old. Finally, at about 2 and a half, they decided she had asthma. They ran lots of tests. They told her she had a little bit of allergies too. And for the next, it took probably about 4 to 5 months. They spent just constantly doing different medications, doing a nebulizer, doing albuterol treatments. We went in and out of different doctors to try to figure out what would be the best treatment for her. And by the time she was 3, we had it set, and she was on 5 medications. And I felt like it still wasn't helping her because she still was getting sick all the time. It's just her cough at night was better. So the medications were really just controlling the asthma at night. She was still sick all the time. I mean, we're talking literally from this past, I think it was from like December to just February, she had strep throat 3 times. I mean, so it was, and we had bronchitis this last year. We had everything. It just seems like she was so weak, and everybody's like, oh, that's what little girls go through. Little kids go through that. They have to build their immune system. And I was like, something's got to be different. My goal wasn't really to try nutritional supplements, but I started noticing a difference with her when I started using Shackley's Get Clean line with cleaning. My intentions were just to use a cleaning product, but I started using it, and it made a difference. So, but there's a list of all the medications she was on, as you can see. And the first one worked really well, which was Singular, and we loved it. We noticed a huge difference in her immediately. But I started noticing she was having night terrors, and she would even have hallucinations. And so that is not listed as a side effect, but I started to look it up on the internet, which can be a great tool and also a nightmare for a parent. And I started seeing that it was very common in children to have night terrors and hallucination on this. So when I brought it up to her doctor, she was like, yes, it actually is pretty common. So I wanted her off of it. I wasn't going to deal with that. So if you want to talk a little bit more about the side effects.
Well, I just went to the internet to the makers of Singular, and I just copied what they list there as warnings to people, and I was surprised that there were so many. And you can see, get emergency medical help if you have any signs of an allergic reaction, difficulty breathing, swelling of your face, lips, tongue, throat. That was sounded really bad. And call your doctor if you have serious side effects such as skin rash, bruising, tingling, numbness, pain, muscle, purple or red point spots on your skin, sinus pain, swelling, irritation, fever, throat. I'm just, kind of giving these, causing blistering and peeling. And then the less serious side effects may include headache, stomach pain, heartburn, upset stomach, nausea, diarrhea, tooth pain, fever, stuffy nose, blah, 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 blah. And then it said, also, see, also more side effects. And so and that's what you did, Amber, and that's when you found the rest of them. So the point that we want to make is not that there isn't a place for drugs. Certainly they're important, but just be aware all drugs have toxic side effects. In fact, Professor, have you joined us yet?
Yes, I'm here.
There you are. I thought I saw you come on. You're gonna be talking about side effects of medications in just a few minutes, but one of the things that I learned from Dr. Steve Cheney is that all drugs have toxic side effects, and we just need to be aware of them because some of them become very familiar to us because we hear about them so much. So let's go back to the story then, Amber. What happened next?
Well, this picture you see on here is my daughter at right before she turned 3. She was already good enough at working her inhaler all by herself. The thing that was hardest for me was she was still sick. We were controlling the cough with 5 medications basically, and we had to take those daily. And if you missed it, you could tell. And we still had to use the rescue inhaler every now and then if she was running too much or got too hot. But she was still sick, and I just didn't understand that. But I still was just getting the same thing. She's just got to build her immune system. But when I started researching on my own more and trying to be more proactive, because I think as parents we tend to feel that our doctors are going to do the best thing, and I think they try, but they're into medicine, and they're not going to always give you some of the best things, in my opinion. So I started researching more, and I started learning that a lot of the medications, especially the steroid medication she was on, was hurting her immune system. So no wonder she was getting sick. I was treating one thing in return for something else. So we knew after this past February, or mid-February, I said, we got to figure something out. We have to absolutely do something that's going to help her get better. And I started reading a lot of testimonies from my business leader, Harper. She sent me tons of testimonies, and I will be completely honest with you, I was very skeptical. I read these for about 2 or 3 months before I decided to plunge and get the vitamins, because I was like, there's no way. I've been working with doctors for 2 years. There's no way vitamins are going to make her better. So I did. We'd already been using the cleaning products, and I noticed a difference with the runny nose. Even with our older son, we noticed a difference with that. So in March, I started her. If you want to go to the next slide, we started her on the multivitamin for children. She also did vitamin C and the Nutriferon, and I was told that she needed the Optiflora, which is the probiotic, to help clear out her gut. And so that's what we did in March. I completely did everything, and I just went at it really strong. And within a week or two, we were noticing a huge difference. I waited until she wasn't sick anymore because she had strep throat in February, so I waited until she was completely not sick. I took her off her medications, and we tried everything. And I am extremely excited that she has not been sick since March 1st.
Wow. Oh, yay.
She's not been to one doctor except for her 4-year checkup in April. We've not had to use any of her asthma medications, and she's even had a cold one time since then. She had one little cold. It lasted 4 days. I upped her vitamin C, and I upped the Nutriferon. It only lasted 4 days, and we still did not have to use her rescue inhaler. It was that much better. So we've had no complications since then.
Amen.
And I do know without a doubt that the tougher allergy season for us is usually getting ready to start. So we've already upped some of her vitamin C and her Nutriferon to try to be a little bit proactive. But so far we're doing good. We've actually added in Omega Guard now to give her the fish oils for the inflammation to try to help with that. So
excellent. All right. Well, let's then go over to Professor Steve Cheney. And Steve, walk us through, if you would, a bit of some of the other side effects of the asthma medications.
Okay, well, we're starting here with the corticosteroids, and Barb, I'm just going to come back to that comment you made earlier about all medications have side effects, and I think I've told this story on an earlier call, but I mean, I think it is worth repeating, not too many times, but at least once more, about a colleague of mine. We taught the very first course that medical students got when they arrived at UNC, and one of the things that he would share with the students, he was a physician, and he would ask them, do you know what the safest medications are? And they would say, well, no. And he'd say, well, the safest medications are the newest medications. And then he would go on to explain, it didn't mean the new medications were safer than the old ones. It's just they didn't know the side effects yet.
So there is no listings.
Come on.
So anyway, with that little bit of introduction, we're going to start with the inhaled corticosteroids. And here the biggest thing, well, there are a number of things that are really important to know about corticosteroids. But one is they affect the immune system. They depress the immune system. So, yeah, you get things like thrush, candida, that's yeast growing in the oral cavity. And again, it's because the immune system is so complicated. And, Amber, you were talking a minute ago about, when you were putting your daughter on these medications, she kept getting sicker, and it just didn't seem logical that the medications were causing the problem, but, yes, they were, because they were affecting her immune system, and that's why she kept getting all these colds.
I didn't know that about thrush, but she had thrush and yeast infections a lot.
And so, and it's not that you're never going to get that if, you're on the vitamins, but it's much less likely, because what you really want to be doing is having the immune system as strong as possible. You talked about coughing being a problem, and in your case, the asthma medications suppressed her cough, but in some cases they can cause kind of a dry, reflexive cough that just keeps going on. And here's the good thing. You got her off of those medications relatively early, because as time goes on, if she'd had to use them continually, they would have affected her growth. They would have affected her bone density. And these are the years in which, up through the teen years and maybe a little bit beyond that, is when they really need to be developing their maximum bone density, so they don't develop osteoporosis when they get older. Some of these other things, the cataracts, are something more for older people, but even with young people, you can deplete the adrenal gland, but more importantly, you can start to get elevations in blood sugar. And as you get these elevations, these fluctuations in blood sugar, as Barbara has mentioned in many of her calls, this affects their moods and their ability to concentrate. So, these are all sorts of just side effects of just one of the things that the doctors had recommended. And then I'm not even going to try and read all of this there, but again, the interesting thing is, Symbicort is advertised as an alternative to the corticosteroids. But on the other hand, if you read the side effects, it also suppresses the immune system. So, it increases their susceptibility to infections. They mention chickenpox and measles. They talk about flu-like symptoms. They talk about upper respiratory tract infections, sore throats, sinusitis, all of those sorts of things. That are, and again, these are. And they also talk about wheezing. So these are things that you're taking the medication you think to prevent, but can actually cause those same symptoms you're trying to prevent.
Yeah, like the first paragraph, Professor, that says that it increases the risk of death from asthma. It's like, when I read that, I thought, surely I read that wrong. Let me go back. It is not known whether this additional ingredient, that budesonide, helps reduce the risk of death or not. Don't know. So I just think it's fair for people to understand that we have to be really respectful about these medications. They are serious drugs. Okay, I'm going to the next slide. I don't like that one. Okay, tell us some good news.
Okay, so these are the products that we're recommending that you can use to strengthen your immune system, and you know, you heard about a lot of those earlier. The Incredivites, you need a multivitamin that's just providing the nutrients your body needs on a daily basis to optimize its immune system. You talk about Optiflora, that's protecting the friendly bacteria, that's providing friendly bacteria, and that strengthens our immune system because there's about 70 to 80% of our immune system that really originates in the gut, and that's playing a big role in fighting off the bad bacteria and the yeast that can take up residence there. So if you are populating your gut with friendly bacteria, that immune system is freed up to concentrate on really helping the rest of the body. And then there's the vitamin C. Again, that's something that's very important for white blood cells to function at their optimal. Nutriferon, you're going to hear much more about that later on. Alfalfa, I don't think that was mentioned earlier. Alfalfa is something that's been around forever, but it often helps with allergies and asthma symptoms. It's an old faithful standby. And then, you know, part of your healthy nutrition, providing your body with the nutrients it needs, is not just the multi. It is making sure your kids are getting the protein they need. So that's a complete program, but I think Joe and Barb are going to break it down for you and talk about the individual products.
Great. Joe.
Yes, thank you, Steve. The Incredivites, that's our Shaklee chewable multivitamin for children that is the best. It is just, you know, like it says there, it's the first children's chewable with immune supporting power of lactoferrin. And that is so important, I just think, to keep their little immune systems functioning in a healthy pattern. You get 23 essential nutrients. You get vitamin D in there, and they're super safe, naturally sweetened with xylitol and no artificial flavors, sweeteners, or preservatives, gluten-free. And you're not seeing a list here of any potential side effects because there aren't any, and that to me is a big plus. And also, when our sons were younger, and now with our grandsons, I love being able to give them Shaklee's Incredivites, the children's chewable, because it took the stress out of eating. Kids are quixotic in how they eat. One day, you know, 1 week they'll eat all of one thing, one food group, and then another week they're into another food group. And with Incredivites, they take their two and their bases are at least covered, you know, with the vitamins and minerals that are essential for them.
Very good.
The kids love them. My daughter actually had a hard time when we first started taking them because we used to use the little gummies, and these don't taste like gummies. So it took her a little bit to get used to it, but my two younger boys did them very easily. And yes, even my 18-month-old will chew one Incredivite every day.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, they taste good, you know, and so it's wonderful to have that as an option. And then we go to the Optiflora that Steve talked about, and for many of you, you may be shaking your head and say, wait a minute. We're talking about the immune system, and we're talking about upper respiratory stuff and inflammation in the lungs, and Optiflora is a probiotic that has to do with the gut. And that was the big news for many of us, is research began to indicate that 70% of our immune system is located in the gut. And our poor guts take a whole lot of abuse. And so it's very important to focus on healing the gut when you have a weakened immune system. And what's so wonderful about Optiflora is it's a teeny, tiny little capsule about the size of a pearl. So it is a wonderful way to teach children to swallow. And my grandkids are always, they would brag about, Sophie would say, Jack can swallow Optiflora just with his spit. It's like, I don't really need to know that. And so because it's very easy to swallow, so it really builds their confidence. But you'll hear a lot more about probiotics, but understand probiotics are actually very fragile. And it takes a special science to have that probiotic be able to be swallowed and make it through the very strong acids of the stomach to be able to then go through the very alkaline environment of the small intestine and land in the lower intestine again. And that's what Shaklee is really brilliant at, is absorption. And they developed this amazing process of triple encapsulation that protects those very fragile probiotics so they make it through the stomach. Okay, protein, Joe.
Oh,
is that me? No, that's me.
oh, okay.
Okay. I forgot where I went. So these are wonderful variety of protein products. It's great for parents because you can make peanut butter fudge out of that energizing soy protein. You see the recipe at the bottom of the page. It's a cup of peanut butter, a cup of energizing soy protein, a third of a cup honey. It's healthy, it's fast. It's sometimes getting protein in children is tricky because a lot of times kids don't like a lot of meat and protein kinds of food, so that's wonderful for that. Then there are the Shaklee 180 products that have this wonderful variety of flavors from strawberry, vanilla, chocolate, cafe latte. There's a new seasonal one that's out now for the fall called vanilla chai. They're really wonderful. 23 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber. So that's a wonderful product. And then meal shakes, which are the whey-based protein powder, but all of them non-genetically modified, all safe, all natural, all healthy, and really delicious, and kids just really respond well to them. Then the chewable Vita C, wonderful product. Whenever Shaklee is making the chewable forms of things, they will only use natural flavorings, natural ingredients, natural colorings, and so on. And so when you're on a budget, the sooner you can teach your children to swallow, that's going to be a nice money saver for you. And so chewable Cs are 100 milligrams, but the sustained release C, which you'll see in the bottom of the slide, that is a 500 milligram. And it slowly releases C into the bloodstream over a 24-hour period. It's a fabulous product. Vitamin C is one of the few nutrients that's capable of being absorbed down the entire length of the intestinal tract. There's alfalfa that Dr. Cheney talked about earlier, remarkable product. It has a root system that extends, we are told, 20 feet into the soil, so it can suck up trace minerals. It's very rich. Farmers use it to make a very high-quality hay for their expensive farm animals, but alfalfa has many properties, including it is a natural decongestant. It's a natural antihistamine. It's wonderful for the stomach, by the way. Children chew it. It tastes like minty grass, but kids, I can't explain that, but it's a wonderful product. You can also crush it and stir it in juices. Very nice for your arsenal. And then, Professor, if you talk to us a little bit about Nutriferon.
Well, Nutriferon is really a pretty amazing product. It was created by a Dr. Yamanuchi, who shared the Kojima, sorry about that, who shared the Nobel Prize for the discovery of something called interferon. And interferon is a natural hormone-like substance the body produces to fight off, flu infections, viral infections. And originally we thought of it as just something that was important to fight off infection. But later on we've really learned that it's more like a conductor of the immune system. So if you think about an orchestra, and our immune system is very complex, an orchestra would be a good example. The conductor, when, at certain points, and this would be when the body is under attack, will signal the orchestra to play fortissimo, to really play your loudest, to work your hardest. And then you get to those soft passages. And that's usually after the fortissimo. Then you get to the pianissimo, for musicians in the group. Those are the soft passages. And so the conductor signals the orchestra to calm down, to be quiet, to be restful. And that's exactly what interferon does. And so what nutriferon, and so he discovered interferon, but the problem was, and it's very effective at fighting some very hard to treat infections. It's used medically, but it is, because it's not under the body's control, it has some really serious side effects. So he spent 40 years of his life, headed up a research laboratory, spent 40 years developing a product that would boost the body's ability to make interferon naturally, but now that interferon would be under the body's control. So this is really not just a stimulator of the immune system, it's a modulator of the immune system. And so that's why it's so important. It's important when you're coming down with colds and flu, absolutely. But it's this one amazing product that also helps to calm the immune system when it gets to allergy season, or when you have things like allergic reactions that can lead to asthma. So, amazing product.
Excellent. And there was a study done at Cornell. You want to mention this, because that was really fascinating, how effective it was.
And this is, of course, for those of you who forgot, this is Barbara's alma mater. So this is near and dear to her heart. But this is a very interesting study, and one of the things it illustrates here is it actually doesn't use animal testing. And so, the kinds of testing that have been used in the past to test products like nutriferon that stimulate or regulate the immune system involved animals. So what Shackley did was first fund a study to develop an alternative to animal testing. This is using human airway epithelial cells in culture. And so the initial study that they supported and was published was a study in which established the validity of that model. And then they followed up with a study that showed that nutriferon really activates the genes that cause the natural killer cells. And by the way, natural killer cells do exactly what it sounds like they do. They kill invading bacteria and viruses and cancer cells. So it activates them. It causes them to proliferate, which means you start out with one or two and you get a whole bunch. So it can respond to an infection very quickly. And it signals the rest of the immune system to make the appropriate response.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and this was also mine.
Yes.
Now, remember those drugs we talked about at the beginning, the Singulair and the cortisone type inhalant drugs. A big part of what they are designed to do is to fight inflammation. And you see the problems that they cause is they suppress the immune system in the process. So if you do it naturally, using things like omega-GARD, using things like omega-3 fatty acids, you can reduce the inflammation, but you don't compromise the immune system while you're doing it. So you've got the omega-GARDs, which is a high-potency, high-purity product, great for kids who are old enough that they can swallow. And for the younger kids, we've got those great Mighty Smarts. They're the chewable form of omega-3, and they include they're very enriched for DHA, and that's important for very young kids because it's important for brain development and avoiding things like ADD, ADHD. And then there's vitamin C. We talked about that earlier. You've got the sustained release, which slowly releases it, or you can use the chewable vitamin C. I remember when our son was little, he loved those chewable vitamin Cs. Most kids really, really like them. So you've got those choices to also stimulate the immune system.
And Amber, I'm going to ask you if you would just jump in here, because you just began using the Mighty Smarts with Lena Grace.
I actually use omega-GARD with her. She's only 4 and cannot swallow yet, but I poke a hole in it and I squeezed the juice out, and I put it, like yesterday she had it with a smoothie. I just put some of the juice in with her smoothie, and she drank all her smoothie. Today she had some applesauce for her snack at dinner time, and so I squeezed it on the spoon, and she ate it with the applesauce. Takes it very easily. And I noticed, even just because the reason I started adding it to her nutrition is because she's starting to, I can tell that the dry cough is starting back just because it's allergy season and everything's coming back. So I said, well, hey, we need to start using this, and I have it. And she didn't cough at all last night. She hasn't been coughing bad, but she's had a little bit of a dry cough since Thursday. And I started putting that in, and she's asleep now. Been asleep for about 2 hours, and she hasn't had a cough either. So it works pretty well. It definitely helps with inflammation. Doing well.
Absolutely. And so, Steve, just one more slide, if you would, about Omega Guard, because it's such a safe and pure product that is such a problem for people to know how they can get fish oil that they can trust.
Right. And so I'll talk about the trust part, and you'll talk about the not trusting the other products part in just a minute. But that's really what makes Shaklee unique. Is it is ultra pure. It is pharmaceutical grade, which means that they run extensive quality control tests to make sure that there are no contaminants. And they use a triple distillation, vacuum distillation process, low temperature process, so that they retain all of the naturally occurring omega-3 fatty acids. You've got all 7 of them there. But along with that, you don't have any PCBs, you don't have any heavy metals. It has pharmaceutical grade purity, which means that this is the highest standard of purity in the industry. And as I said earlier, it's natural anti-inflammatory, but it doesn't have the side effects of those anti-inflammatory drugs, and but it only has side benefits. The side benefits are it's important for brain development and eye development, for reducing the likelihood of ADD, ADHD. It is, once we get a little bit older, then we see the flip side of that. It's not the brain development we're worried about. It's the memory loss and depression as we get older. It really helps there as well.
Excellent. And I just wanted you to see, most of us don't know a lot about the vitamin industry. And I every now and then I get reports from consumer labs, and I am just shocked every time one of these reports comes in, because of what a high number of the products that they test don't meet their standards, and their standards are not all that high. They're really not testing for absorption or effectiveness. They're just testing what's on the label versus what they find inside the tablet or the capsule, whatever they're testing. And this was a study I found that they did on fish oil, and virtually a third of the products they tested were contaminated with excessive amounts of PCBs, or they were mislabeled. And I just jotted down, like 4 of them contained somewhere between 20 to 30% less of the actual omega-3 fatty acids, EPA, DHA, and so forth, than they said on the label. 3 contained 2 to 3 times more than what they said on the label, and 1 was incorrectly claimed to have a milligram of fat, which is a very teeny tiny amount, but actually had 1,000 milligrams of fat, and so on and so forth. And so it was. I just want people to realize there's no way a consumer could know this. And there was another test that was done on green and food supplements. There was some kind of powders and things, and they were tested them for heavy metals and microbes and pesticides. You can see it there. 5 of the 11 products they selected, that's almost half, met its quality. Only 5 met the quality standards. Green and whole food supplements can be powders or pills and so on and so forth. Powders that failed testing were contaminated with lead, arsenic, or bacteria. 1 pill wouldn't break apart, so you could swallow it, but it would, never disintegrate within your body, right? And so when Steve was talking about the really high level of quality control that's done at Shaklee, we're talking about 100,000 quality control tests every year that they conduct. And those of you who have been using the products for a while know that periodically products go on back order, and almost always it's because it just takes one ingredient in one formulation that doesn't meet their standards, and that they have to hold up the production of everything until a pure source can be found. There is a standard called the U.S. Pharmacopoeia that recommends that for manufacturing standards that 80 contaminants be tested for, Shackley tests for 400. So just wanted to give you an idea about how wonderful and pure the products are, because that's why you can trust them. Okay, Joe?
Yeah, the kid-friendly cleaning kit. You know, the Shackley cleaning products, we hear over and over and over again how people convert to Shackley cleaning products, and symptoms for, the symptoms for asthma, for allergies, for upper respiratory diseases, for skin issues, all start to decrease, just with switching brands on the cleaning products. And for me, with children and now with grandchildren, the safety factor is really important. These are non-toxic, and the kids can have the spray bottles and clean right along with you, and you don't have to have any worries.
And Amber, you mentioned earlier that when you switch to the cleaning products, you notice a difference first in your son, and then also in the other kids.
Jamie is our 14-year-old, and he's been taking Zyrtec since he was about 4 years old. And he would throw up every morning, basically. After he would eat breakfast, he would automatically throw up because his allergies were so bad. And we noticed, I actually switched to the Get Clean kit last May, so about a year and a half ago. And I was doing it because I was cloth diapering, and I wanted something that was easy with the cloth diapers, and this I could use for everything. So that's why I switched. Well, after about 2 months of using it, I noticed that Jamie, even on his medication, was not throwing up anymore. So I was like, well, hey, let's just take him off. Maybe it's getting better. And sure enough, I think I took him off last July. Since last July, he doesn't throw up at all, and he's not had any more Zyrtec. So his was definitely the chemicals in the house that was irritating him.
Hey. Oh, amen to that.
And it is definitely kid-friendly, because my 1-year-old, 3-year-old, and 4-year-old walk around with Shackley spray bottles and help clean my windows every day.
Yes. They can spray away, and you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
And what you were just saying, Amber, too, about those symptoms going away, we hear that a lot, too. People, even like I've had people tell me that they would get headaches, like every Saturday, and they thought maybe it was just because, their body was reacting to not having the stress of going to work. And when they switched to Shackley cleaning products, the headaches went away, and they realized it was the cleaning products. They were cleaning on Saturdays, and that's what it was. What the problem was. So what you're saying about your son is validated over and over again. And of course, our laundry products, I think, are particularly important, because our clothes are next to our skin. Our skin is an absorbing membrane. And the residues of laundry products in our bedding. I mean, imagine, your head, is on your pillowcase. You got your sheet pulled up over your head. You're breathing in all those yucky things. I'm not real scientific here, but yeah, I mean, it's just the comfort of knowing that you're doing the best with just taking a simple step. It's so important.
Very nice. And because I didn't mention that Amber has a master's degree in accounting and in education, and so she did a cost analysis. And Amber, if you would just tell us about that very briefly.
Well,
it's kind of interesting.
This is when we had new insurance in August of last year, so I was able to I literally pulled up my insurance and calculated it, and you can see on there, basically out of pocket in a 7-month period for Grace only, her only, we spent a little over $1,000 in 7 months, and that was with insurance.
Wow.
So I can't imagine people that didn't have insurance. And now, over the past 7 months of just the Shackley products that I have used for her, I've spent $154. That is on supplements. And then you can also see on there that I have I coupon, so it was a big deal for me to switch to Shackley Cleaning, because I was really afraid it wasn't going to equal out, but it really is. I mean, I've spent for 1 year total, $157 on all my cleaning supplies.
Yeah.
That's for me to do laundry for a family of 6. I have basically 8 loads a week. That is for dishwasher products and everything. So, I mean, it's really very cost effective.
Really economical, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then this is just the Healthy Kids Vitamin Pack, and we've broken it down in terms of cost. And you can just see, you know, the value of a Shackley membership, because you're getting all the products at the member price then instead of retail. And so it's a very important thing to, you know, to consider.
So there's your package. And then we just wanted to mention a product we didn't mention today, but the most popular product that Shackley makes is called Vitalizer. It's a daily vitamin strip of 6 tablets that contain over 80 essential nutrients. There are 12 patents based on 12 clinical studies. It's just a remarkable product. Because the absorption is so dramatic with it. Some of those nutrients, you know, are fat soluble, some are water soluble, some need to be released in the stomach, others need to be delayed and released lower in the intestinal tract. That's what Shackley is a genius at. And the reason I mention it is that when you begin, for those of you who may not be members yet at Shackley, we allow everyone to register as a member. And when you purchase a Vitalizer on your first order, you get a membership free. So that's why I wanted to mention that.
And there's no yearly renewal fee or anything.
Oh, right, one time. That's right. As long as you're active, exactly right. Mm-hmm.
So we invite you to come back, join us again next week when we will have our webinar on Inside the World of Shackley, which will give you an overview of the history, philosophy, and benefits offered through Shackley. And when Barbara and I were talking earlier, I said, you know, Shackley it's if any of you eat artichokes, which I love, but you know, you peel off the leaves of the artichoke, and of course the big thing is getting to the center, to the heart of the artichoke, which is just luscious. And that's a lot like what Shackley is too. You peel off, you know, the different layers of Shackley, and as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into who and what we are, you get to the heart of Shackley, and it is just a great place to be. So that's why we want you to come back and join us for Inside the World of Shackley next week. And Laura Harper is going to share the story of her son Jacob's health challenges as an infant, and then the outcome after starting on Shackley products and making dietary changes.
Absolutely. And what a wonderful story that is. That little boy was very sick, and Laura will be sharing that next week. You'll want to hear that. So that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Joe, is there anything I need to do?
No, good job. Well, you can go down and hit questions.
I did. Okay, so we're fine.
See if there are any questions there.
Well, I don't think there is, but it could be that I'm not seeing them. But anyway, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next week. And thank you, Amber and Dr. Cheney and Joe. And
you're welcome.
See you all. Have a great week.
Sounds good.
Good night.
Good night,
everybody.